This past summer, the nation watched as violence erupted between protesters and counter-protesters at a white nationalist rally in Charlottesville, Virginia. Rewind to 1919, race riots were sweeping across America. Countless African Americans were killed in lynchings in every part of the country. But the deadliest race riot didn't happen in Chicago, Washington, D.C., or even Philadelphia. Historians believe it happened in a tiny Arkansas town on the banks of the Mississippi River called Elaine. In an isolated part of the Arkansas Delta, the sun shines on fertile farmland for as far as the eye can see. But exactly what took root here in the cotton fields still haunts this Phillips County community. Pastor Andrew Gibson's family is one of the few who still lives in Elaine.
When you look around, you can kind of see why.
You'll find a worn and weathered water tower and a downtown where time seems to stand still.
This whole town, you have an eerie feeling of why it's like it is.
A dark past it's kept buried for nearly a century.
Keep digging, just keep digging.
UALR historian Dr. Brian Mitchell is traveling the country searching for clues about what happened in early fall of 1919. World War I had ended, the price of cotton shot up, and African-American sharecroppers believed they would be paid fairly.
Well, the plantation owners robbed them blind.
White landowners got wind black farmers were attending a union meeting just outside of Elaine.
The blacks inside of the church say that the whites started shooting first. The surviving whites that are there said the blacks started shooting first. But what we know is that one of the officers is killed.
Word spread quickly, and so did fear of a black revolt.
The telegraph messages went out to neighboring towns, and those towns loaded up men with their arms and came out to assist.
The sheriff deputized citizens, and Dr. Mitchell says the mob violence went on for days.
Not men bearing arms, but, women and children working out in the fields, gunned down.
The call for help went to Governor Charles Brough, who rode in with federal troops from Camp Pike to restore order. It was too late.
That's the bodies of my 4 uncles in that picture.
Delta Cultural Center Director Kyle Miller grew up hearing stories about Dr. D.E.A. Johnston. The prominent Helena physician and his brothers were passing through on a hunting trip.
Because of just hatred and evil, they were just wrongly snatched off a train and brutally murdered.
Dr. Mitchell estimates anywhere from 22 to a high of more than 500 black citizens were killed in the massacre. A 2015 investigation by the Equal Justice Initiative puts the number of victims at 237.
We believe that it's the largest race riot in American history.
5 white men also died in Elaine.
They were seen as heroes that protected status quo and white supremacy in the region.
But there's a missing piece to an ugly hole in Arkansas history.
There's nothing that commemorates the death of any blacks. In fact, we don't even know where any of them are buried.
Many scholars believe there is a mass grave.
We do have some ideas. We have run across clues.
New artifacts show the Johnston brothers were likely buried in Pine Bluff.
And so then when Dr. Mitchell started doing his research, he says, hey, Kyle, I think that your great uncle's bodies are between this cemetery and that cemetery. Then that brought closure for us.
Accountability would never be achieved. Hundreds of blacks were detained and 78 were arrested. An all-white jury swiftly convicted the first dozen defendants, who became known as the Elaine 12. A judge sentenced them all to death. The men were freed years later thanks to a landmark Supreme Court ruling.
Not a single white individual was called to answer for what was done.
Today, folks in Elaine, both black and white, would rather keep the past in the past.
Leave it alone. Just leave that alone. That's what they'll tell you.
Gibson and Miller agreed to rebound. Arkansans must reflect.
There are ones here now that still don't know.
Gibson hopes this new civil rights park teaches the innocent about the injustices that happened some 98 years ago.
It's really easy, an easy way, of getting in and being able to open conversation up.
A first step to a more peaceful tune in town.
if we don't share what happened and tell stories, then those things, even the dark things, we're doomed to repeat it.
Miller is part of a group of descendants, both black and white, working together to build a monument for the 2019 centennial. We posted more about the plans, including a possible location, on our homepage, arkansasmatters.com. Also, during our visit to Elaine, we couldn't help but notice all the birdhouses. To see how they're helping repair the town's reputation, just look under Web Extras.
It's one of those stories in Arkansas that's always fascinated me. And it's one of those things that's important to give voices to those who no longer have a voice because of this. And it's that thing, too, and it's that lesson that we all know, that if you don't learn from your past, you're destined to repeat it.
Exactly,
So
and that's exactly what Miller was saying there.
Fascinating stuff. Well, still ahead.